if we cut our interest by 1 point for years, we save $300 billion. We're going to spend $600 billion a year, $600 billion, because of one numbskull that sits here. I don't see enough reason to cut the rates now.
Yeah, well, that's laying it on the line. Joining us now to talk about it, John Carney, co-author of the daily Breitbart Business Digest. Hi, John. You know, it's so Trump called him a numbskull. He's kind of working the ref. But the thing that's so interesting, with all these good inflation numbers coming down, and it really is a surprise, the tariff inflation is missing in action. I mean, that's one thing. And as Scott Bessent said today in the hearing, there is a sort of tariff derangement syndrome. But the reality is the economists were wrong, all right? Amateurs like you and me, I hate to say it, but we were saying all along it wasn't going to be an inflationary surge. Listen, I don't understand. What is the reason that the Fed keeps telling everybody they're not going to cut their target rate? Because the target rate is now over 2 percentage points, arguably more than that, above the inflation rate. So I'm trying to figure out what is the Fed's argument here?
Look, the Fed has no argument. They have tariff derangement syndrome. They thought there would be an inflation surge. And in fact, we've had deflation. If you look through today's PPI numbers, there's not only not a sign of consumer inflation, there's not even a sign of a margin squeeze. It's very clear that the tariffs aren't being, look, the tariffs are being paid. We've collected tens of billions of dollars of tariffs, but it's not being pushed through to consumers. It's not even squeezing margins. A thing almost nobody noticed, Larry, is that the trade services, which is margins, both for wholesalers and retailers, actually expanded. So margins, profits are going up. Prices aren't going up. So who's paying the tariffs? Very clearly what's happening is that they are being pushed back on the foreign manufacturers who are being forced to lower their prices. The Fed absolutely has no excuse. They were wrong. Our guy, Christopher Waller actually said he didn't think there would be very much inflationary pressure. Right. He was right. Yeah. But, Trump has a good point. The rest of them may have a little bit of a numbskull problem where they thought something was going to happen. Now they see it didn't happen. They should cut, not just some point later this year. They should cut next week, Larry. When they meet, the Fed should say, we were wrong and we're cutting. I mean, it's just, they cut the rate. They had a jumbo cut last September when the inflation rate was, 2.5 times as high as it is today. It's just an odd thing. I don't think people understand. President Trump's point about interest expense is a very important point. If there's a rule of thumb, for every percentage point, it's worth $300 billion lower interest expense. Why not do it? Why not do it with 1.4% inflation, CPI, over since January? I mean, why not do it? That's the thing. The Fed's got to come out and they've got to explain something here. They can't just twiddle their thumbs. You know what I mean? They just can't say, well, we're worried about tariffs all day long. They've got to have a reason to explain to American people. They're also supposed to be forward-looking, and if you see what's happening, look, the labor market has been very strong, but there are a few worrying signs. The continuing claims number has gone up by more than people expected. We've seen a little bit of an increase in the initial claims. So if they are trying to head off something, they should not be trying to head off the inflation, which we've now had 4 months in a row of extremely mild inflation and deflation in those numbers as well. They should be worried a little bit about what's happening in the labor market. I think a lot of the softness of the labor market is actually people dropping out of the labor force because they are illegal immigrants and they are not showing up to work because they're worried about getting rounded up. That's a positive, but I do have to say the Fed has no excuse not to be cutting. Really, at this meeting, they have to start cutting at the next meeting. If they don't do it next week, they should at least signal that the time for cuts has come. Yeah, exactly. I tell you, my pal Christine Lagarde at the European Central Bank has done a better job. Jay has.
Inflation's come way down there.
You know what? That's one of the things I think that is driving Trump crazy. He sees that the foreign central banks are actually doing a better job at seeing what's going on in the economy and with tariffs than our central bank. They're just ideologically opposed to tariffs, and they're afraid to cut because they think it'll encourage Donald Trump to do the tariffs, when really their job is not to second-guess the American people who elected Donald Trump to put tariffs on. They shouldn't be doing that. They should be worrying about whether interest rates are too high. And as you just pointed out, they are too high. They're much higher than when they were the real rate is much higher than when they were cutting when Biden was still in office.
All right. John Carney, thank you, buddy. Good to see you. Talk soon.